Hello everyone, Dan Swift here, founder and CEO at Numentum, and welcome to the Speaker Series, where we spotlight some of the most interesting minds in the world of revenue generation. At Numentum, we help forward-thinking B2B organizations create better buyer experiences and deliver new momentum to their revenue engine. On this episode of the Speaker Series, we speak with Mark Oakey, Chief Operating Officer at SAP SuccessFactors. We have a great conversation around the intersection between people and business, the need to prepare, and how success can have a multiplier effect. So let's jump straight in. Let's start with learning a little bit more about what you're doing right now. So you're the Chief Operating Officer at SAP SuccessFactors. What should our listeners know about human experience management, HXM, and what SAP SuccessFactors does to help companies in this space?
Sure. So human experience management is really all about people, and SuccessFactors is focused on the people side of the business. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to provide tools and software to help companies as they're transforming, really grow their people. And you can look at, if you look at where we've been in the pandemic over the last couple of years, just to give you an example, a lot of companies have had to change how they do business, right? And so, supply chains have been disrupted. People have had to work from home. We've had all of these situations go on, and they totally affect the operation of a business, but they also affect the people in that business. And so what our software does is it allows companies who have to go through a quick pivot like that, or if they're doing a business transformation, really help them figure out what kind of skill sets they have in the organization, how they can leverage the people, how they can move them forward, and really help them pivot so that they can transform their business more effectively. So SuccessFactors is really all about the people in the organization.
I love that. Super helpful context for all of our listeners. Now, looking at your career, you joined SAP in 2003?
Correct.
So nearly 2 decades at one of the leading software companies in the world. So at a macro level, and this is a big question, but how have you seen the organization change during that period of time?
Okay, well, first of all, when you say 2 decades, it makes it sound a little bit scary. But when I joined in 2003, SAP was really focused on going after the Fortune 1000, so the largest enterprises that are out there on a worldwide basis. One of the reasons I joined is I was actually recruited in because I was told that SAP was going to start focusing on the mid-size, market, which was a major departure, right, for the company, and would mean that we would have to do, some very interesting things in order to make that work. And so, that was really my initial focus, was coming in and saying, okay, how can we help, target and tackle and work with mid-sized companies so that they can get the same benefits that the Fortune 1000 have gotten, in front of them. And over the course of time, as that started to progress, we then started to see, the entree into the cloud. And so I was involved. I've been involved now in 3 different cloud businesses within SAP. 2 of them were startups, and 1 was an acquisition. So I've seen the progression from kind of large enterprise, big companies, looking at mid-sized companies, and how do we tackle the mid-market, and then how do we leverage the cloud, right? And how do we use the cloud to help our companies and our customers transform their business and really become what we call best-run businesses? Okay, and that's been a really interesting journey because it was hard. It's we had to do a big transformation ourselves to go from that type of model to a cloud model. And now, we're still in that transformation period, but we've done a lot of acquisitions. We've built up a lot of cloud properties. We've got we're one of the largest providers in the cloud today, and that journey is not done. So we continue to evolve over time. So it's been a really interesting time for me. I've gotten the ability to work in different business units, to work on different projects, and really, really follow that transformation to where we are today.
Amazing. Now, we've gotten to know each other reasonably well over the last 3 or 4 years. In fact, this is going to be our 4th year partnering specifically with SAP SuccessFactors. So when you think about Empire, what is it about the Empire program that keeps us continually in your sales rep enablement plan year on year? Can you share a little bit with our listeners?
So one of the things that I found really important as we start to move out and focus on the cloud is social selling. Our reps traditionally have been, let's go on site, let's meet with the customer, let's have meetings, and we bring a whole bunch of people in to try and, accomplish what we do. But in this environment where we have to scale in the cloud, we've got to actually show up differently. And in a lot of cases, when we win deals, one of the things that I ask, the sales teams is, how did we show up differently? And when I look at the benefits we get out of Empire, it forces us to actually use different tools and take different innovative approaches to really engage with customers and work them through that process. Now, the good news is we started that a while back so that when the pandemic hit and nobody could travel, this was kind of a natural extension of what people had already learned, and they had the opportunity to really fine-tune the craft. Now, what we've continued to do, and this is part of the ongoing innovation that we really drive at SAP. So we saw this as an opportunity to make our folks more productive, to allow them to scale, to talk to more customers, to engage in a different way, because ultimately we want a long-term relationship with our customers, and we saw this as a way to foster that relationship and continue to grow it over time.
I love it, and I love what you've said in the past when we've talked about this. How you personally, but also the business, invests in early talent, mm-hmm. and you've said things along the lines of giving people an opportunity to ramp quickly in their careers yep. and progress quickly. Can you share a little bit more on that topic as well?
Yeah, one of my favorite things is to engage with really our early talent that we have across the board. We have multiple programs at SAP. The Sales Academy is one of them, where we bring in early talent, we put them through a program, we actually give them on-the-job experience, and then we basically release them to go talk to customers. In SuccessFactors and in other businesses, it's been really, for us and for me personally, for us to continue to drive innovation and stay on the cutting edge. The younger folks coming in have a whole different way of looking at things, right? They process differently, they engage differently, and they have a whole bunch of ideas that, we want to take and leverage. So we've created pretty much what I call an early talent on-ramp. We'll start with, people, we bring them in as interns, and for the ones that are really engaged and have done very well, we'll graduate them into full-time roles, continue to train them, and then we progress them through their career. And so when we put our interns as well as our full-time employees through the Empire program for all the benefits that they get, it makes them better salespeople. It makes them better in terms of engagement with customers. And so that's a really important thing, because SAP is a tough place to navigate. We're 100,000 employees, and we're always, it's always important to bring in the next wave of innovation, whether it's product-based or whether it's people-based. And this is a way where we can really bring in the people-based innovation, is fostering and growing and expanding the reach of our early talent. So that's been a really critical part. We probably, in my business, in the last couple of businesses I've been in, this has been a key focus. And the best part is when you see somebody that you graduate from an intern all the way into a full-time role and they progress through their career, that's just really rewarding.
Yeah, I love it. Now, I want to take you back, Mark. So a lot of people listening to this Empire Speaker Series maybe are early on in their career and are interested to see the journey that people have taken to get to where you are in particular. So your early career, it seems incredibly diverse in terms of experience. So for those listening, programmer to product marketing, multiple roles at GE. So the obvious question, how did you then bridge into sales? What was that transition?
Well, it's interesting. When I started out of school, I actually started as a developer. So I was writing code, and again, since you pulled up the 2 decades, a little bit earlier than that, So I was around at the time when time sharing was still going on, but the PC was starting. So in that development phase, one of my early managers, came into, I still remember this, came into the office and said, "Hey, I want you to come with me. We're going to go visit a customer." And I said, "Oh, okay, that would be fun." And it was just the process of going out and, going through the experience of understanding requirements. Where are they trying to take it? What are the benefits they're trying to go after? Because we used to create custom solutions for customers based on an e-commerce framework. So once I got out there and got a taste of that, I was sold, and that was it. So from that on, I started to progress into different levels. I was in a services role where we were selling custom applications, and I was flying all over the place, meeting with customers, and then building out solutions. As you said, I've done the marketing routes where I've done product marketing, I've done business development, I've done services, done the development route, and then multiple phases of sales and business development. So when people ask me, what's your role, I kind of say, look, I feel like I'm a professional generalist, right? I've done pretty much everything. And the nice thing about that is with every single role that I've taken, you get a perspective that you can take along with you to the next role. And so you get a very well-rounded kind of picture of, different areas of business that you can then apply as you go forward in your career. And that's been really beneficial for me.
That must have helped you from a leadership perspective in terms of how you lead the organization, having been exposed to all of those different positions in the revenue engine, right?
It has. And, it's interesting. A lot of my management training, I got when I was at GE under the Jack Welch era. So one of the big things that they taught, which I agreed with, was empowerment. And during the course of my career, I found that it's really when you put together a high performing team, one of the key facets of that is you're putting together people with complementary skill sets so that everybody brings something to the party. But when you put the whole team together, then you got a multiplier effect. And for me, when we talk about managing teams, I mean, SAP is a very, high potential, high powered organization. So we go after people who were, top performers. Now, the challenge is how do you nurture, grow, and expand capabilities for, top performers? And empowerment's a big deal. So when I'm bringing a team together, it's the creativity of the people that come in. The experience is important, but what I'm looking for people who think a little bit differently, who are creative. And the trick is getting them to exercise that and leverage that, because they're going to come up with solutions you haven't even thought of, right? And that's really important. And if you can do that, then people can grow in their careers. They're expanding, they're engaged, and frankly, they can say, "Look, I did that. That was, that result. I contributed to that," and that means something to them. So I've always been a big believer in, bringing together a good team and then just letting them run and supporting them, right? The key, especially in an organization like SAP, is how can you support them to make sure they're successful, whether it's on a project or whether it's part of their career.
Yeah. So you've led teams over the years, ranging from 5 people to like 1,200 people globally. So I'm hearing empowerment from a leadership style perspective. Is that how you would describe your leadership style? And how's it developed over time? It's probably shifted over the years, right?
Yeah, over the course of time, one of the things that I've had the benefit of is really had a lot of global experience. So one of the things that we find is business is conducted differently in different regions. Also, you find cultures are different. And so you get a diversity of both backgrounds, perspectives, as well as capabilities, and leveraging all of that, right? And being able to put it together. Listening. I mean, listening is a really important thing. You can put a problem on the table, but then you got to listen to some of the solutions that people are bringing forward and some of the recommendations, and then challenge them. Okay. So why is that important, and what do you think we're going to get out of that? And do you have a plan B if it doesn't work? I think the other thing that's important to me is if you're going to work with high potential individuals, you've got to be able to say it's okay to fail, right? I want you to take a risk, right? And so risk taking is another important component. I'm going to take a risk on them and I'm going to support them, but I want them also to take risks at the same time. And that way, by bringing the diverse points of view together, getting them to collaborate, getting them to work together, and frankly, driving for a result, I think you get a really good outcome out of that. And I found that works over time.
So that works at your level into the business, and you've got sellers and cross-functional teams from Chicago to Singapore. Mm-hmm. So how do you get that leadership style to filter into your sales leadership team down so it gets to the people? So essentially your leadership style is emanating into the business. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a real challenge, especially in a large organization like we have. I mean, in SuccessFactors, we've probably got about, in sales, probably about 900 to 1,000 people in sales, if you look at sales and pre-sales. And part of it's culture. I mean, SuccessFactors is a very people-oriented line of business. And so people are always first. So I think the other thing you'll find, and this is really more culture at SAP, it's not unusual for somebody to call me and ask for help on something because they know that I've done something like this before, even if they're not even part of our line of business. And so that willingness to be supportive, to be collaborative, that exists across SAP. When you're talking about sales teams in different regions, part of this is really getting a perspective on what's really going on the ground. And what is, because there could be cultural challenges, there could be legal challenges that are specific to a country or even a market unit within a region that you need to take into consideration. So we find that again, we hire really good people and we promote them in, but we have to support them all the way across the ranks, whether it's at my level or even down at the first line sales manager level, supporting one of our account executives. So it's really providing that backdrop and then being very collaborative, right? It's not unusual for a rep to reach out to me and say, "Hey, I have a problem. Can you help me try and solve it?" And I don't usually get the easy stuff. So and it's if you're delivering and you're supporting and doing what you can, then you build that trust, right? And so people, and as you start to support the organization more and more and support the sales teams more and more, you're building a level of trust. You have empathy for what they're going through, and then you're just providing a certain culture that we've been doing at SAP for a long time. So I think a lot of it is culture. I think a lot of it is being focused on the people, because if we can help them be successful at the sales rep level, then we're going to be successful, and we've seen that work. So that model really plays out.
I love that. And I think people listening to this as well would love to work in that kind of environment where they genuinely feel as though they're in a safe zone, a safe place to reach out to a leader or a cross-functional partner, or like you said, someone in another line of business to say, I've got a problem and I need help. And no one's going to, particularly maybe at the end of a quarter where there was a deal that might have been worked on, which might have gone off the rails a little bit, and ask for help. So you've managed to create that culture where it sounds like people do that.
Yeah, and that's been the culture at SAP ever since I've been here. You build your network over time, you get to know different folks, and as they move in the organization and take on different roles and responsibilities, you can still reach out to them, and they're all willing to try and step up and do what they can. If they don't know the answer, then they'll turn you on to somebody who really does. And so I think that's also part of it. So I think it's a lot of the culture that we have at SAP really, supports that going forward.
So I do know that you've got 3 daughters, and I'm interested. How has being a father of 3 wonderful ladies impacted how you lead?
That's a really good question. So I have 3 amazing girls who have all gone down different career paths. So they're older. My oldest is an attorney. My middle one is a NICU nurse, and my youngest is in communications and PR. So 3 very different areas. And having, and I'm also, I'm one of 11 kids, so I had 5 sisters and 5 brothers. So I know what, sisters are like. So I try to take a lot of that, but it's been really good watching them grow up. Right? They're really talented, attractive young women, and watching them progress through their career, and providing, again, support. So I don't tell them what to do. I mean, that's not the right thing. They're very independent. They're very social, and they know what they want to do. And the best advice that I've given them is find something that you really love, and you're really passionate about, and get up every day and go do it to the best of your ability. Right? Because it doesn't matter what you do, but what matters is that you're happy doing what you love. I will say, from a workplace perspective, having girls gives you a little bit of a different lens. So I'm more sensitive to certain things, like the glass ceiling that's out there, and making sure that they advocate for themselves, and that they communicate the right way, and that they're growing. And they'll come to me periodically and ask for my opinion, and I'll try and give it to them. But again, they're very independent, which I think is really important. That's the way we raise them. And fortunately, it's been a good path. But they also keep me grounded. It's interesting to hear their experiences, and since they're younger, it's not unusual for me to steal ideas from them on things that they've done that I think are pretty cool. And vice versa. Well, I'll share some things that we do and say, hey, have you thought about doing this at your company? So it's a really good, there's a collaboration that goes on there, on a written, honestly, we don't take ourselves too seriously. So we usually are jabbing at each other on a regular basis and having a lot of fun with it.
Love it. So as you know, I've got a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm not taking any ideas from my 3-year-old right now into my business, but I'm looking forward to seeing where she goes in life. She's a big personality, but I want to stay on passions. So I read on your LinkedIn profile, and you tease a little bit with this line, but you say, I am excited about breakout technologies and their potential impact on the world and our quality of life. So I'm obviously massively curious. Can you tell us a little bit more about this passion?
Yeah, so I'll actually go back to the beginning of my career, because when I was in school, at the tail end, I was into artificial intelligence, right? So it was when language, voice technology, expert systems, all these things were just starting to come of age, and so the question was really, okay, so how do you leverage this, and what can this do for business, right? And for companies, so that, and just in general, right? Where is this going to take us? Then we went through the period where the PCs first came out, right? And that radically changed, the whole, when the Lisa showed up, and then we got into Macs, and Apple showed up, and then it was the internet. So, when I left my GE career, I actually went to my first startup so that we were doing e-commerce on the web. And this was bringing in buyers and sellers and doing a lot of purchasing. There were very few companies that were doing it at that time, but you could see the benefit. Now, it was interesting. I remember talking to, purchasing folks at that point, and hearing them say, there's no way I will ever purchase outside of my 4 walls. So this obviously changed, everything. And then the internet turned into the cloud somehow. I don't know, where that happened, but being involved in that, and really into business and commerce that came out of that. I mean, you constantly see innovations that are coming out. And so the question now is, okay, how do I leverage that, so that we can improve how a company operates, or frankly, improve people's lives? I mean, look at where we are right now with all of the green energy that's going on, right? I mean, we put solar on our house. Why? I mean, selfishly, I wanted a bill to go away. But there's also a big benefit that we get out of that. And looking at wind farms, and looking at, look at all the cars that are now going electric. I mean, all of these innovations, you really don't know where they're going to go. And so the question is, how do you harness the technology and then go ahead and leverage it, to make improvements either in your life or in your work life, or both?
So you're a senior executive at SAP. You've got a passion for breakout technologies. You're a father of 3 wonderful ladies. What do you do to relax? I think I read somewhere that you enjoy fishing and playing golf. So when you have free time, do you reach for your fishing gear, or do you reach for your golf clubs first of all?
Well, over time, that's kind of changed, right? So yes, I love to fish when I get the opportunity. I don't get the opportunity very often. I used to golf a lot, but with schedules, that's gone away. So what I really do, I started doing this with my wife years ago, probably about 12 years ago. We started cooking together. Mm-hmm. And so, that's you'll usually on the weekend, you'll find me in the kitchen whipping something up or trying to really perfect cooking skills. And my girls laugh at me. They're like, "Oh gosh, you're watching another cooking show." But it's one of those things where you can be creative. It's a great outlet. I really enjoy it, and it's something that I've learned how to do together with my wife Denise, so that we both enjoy ourselves. I mean, on our 25th anniversary, I took her on a cooking vacation in Italy. And it was one of the best vacations we had, where you go to cooking classes a couple of days, you prepare the food, and then you present it, and then you have it. And we did touring and all that, but it was just fantastic. So that's, I love the beach. I have a boat that I go out on, probably not enough. And then, we like to cook. I'm a bit of a foodie, so I like food and wine. And those are the kind of things that I really enjoy.
What's your signature dish then? What is your go-to?
People have asked me that. I don't really have one. We're always trying new stuff. When the pandemic hit, my youngest moved back home with us, and she's been living with us until everything kind of clears up. So we started cooking together, and her tastes and our tastes were different. So it's just been a really good creative outlet for us, to do. So that's what I enjoy.
Now, it's interesting when you and I chat. Oftentimes, it might be within an end of quarter or even end of financial year, and every time we chat, you never seem particularly rattled, despite what could be going on around you. So how do you stay so cool when other people around you might not be? What is the secret there?
I hide it really well. I've been in a sales role for over 30 years, right? I mean, I left sales and went into a COO role, but I've lost track of how many quarter ends I've had. And a lot of it is really preparation. So there's obviously experience. If you've done it a long time, you kind of know what to expect and what you have to do, but you can never, you never can see, the crazy stuff coming, a deal going off the rails, right? Or somebody saying, "Hey, I need your help at the last minute." So I learned early in my career, I told people that, my mantra was expect the unexpected, because if you do, and it happens, you're not surprised, right? So I think there's a lot of preparation that goes into a quarter end or a year end. And it's just, it's the things that you do or that you have to do to make sure that business gets conducted. But then also kind of rolling with the punches, because you're going to get a curveball or two or three. Some of them are going to happen, on the last day of the quarter, which is usually, in our business, it's probably one of the most exciting times. There's good exciting and then there's bad exciting, but we have more good than we do bad. And you just have to take it in stride, and don't let it focus on how do I fix it and how do I get it done, as opposed to, oh my gosh, something's gone wrong. Because you can't change that. You are where you are. Now the question is, what do you do, to get to a successful outcome? And that's kind of the way I've always operated.
And based on what I've heard in this conversation, ask for help, right? Anyone listening to this, don't try and go alone on this. You should have people around you, like as Mark said, that you can reach out to. And what is the expression? Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's it. And we always, when we're doing our forecast calls with our sales teams, it's one of the first things we say is raise your hand early. Where do you need help? And it can be as simple as I need you to help me with a strategy, or I need to get something through an approval process or something like that. But it's always about pulling together. And with a company like SAP, I'll tell you this: we have so many resources available. You just have to know where to go and who to go to. And they're always willing to try and pitch in and help, even during the most stressful times of the quarter.
So in your 30 years and your 120 quarter ends, you've
You're doing it again.
There's got to have been some pretty key and influential people in your career. So what is the best sales advice that you've ever received?
Oh gosh, I've gotten a lot of sales advice. I would say, it's all about planning ahead. Make sure that you plan ahead. What they told me early on is a successful sales professional doesn't look at what's in front of them today or this quarter. They look at the next 4 quarters, right? How are you going to balance out your year? What do I have to do now to make sure that I have a good outcome at the end of the year? So I'm always working on the next thing. We had many instances where deals pop up out of the blue, and you say, okay, here's a bluebird. Now I've got to work it and make it happen. But preparing for that, knowing when to ask for help, right? Making sure that at the end of the day, you've got to have agreement with your customer about how we're going to get through the journey of getting a deal signed. So set the expectations early. Make sure you're constantly communicating. Raise your hands if you need help, right? And just make sure you have a plan B. I'm a big plan B guy. You can always say, hey, here's the ideal outcome. Very rarely do you walk that path. So you have to always be ready with your plan B. And I think so it's really those things in general. And again, leverage the executives, leverage the team that you have around you, because everybody can bring something to the party.
Last big question for you. You seem obviously incredibly calm, and you've explained, and it comes with experience, but there's got to be things that frustrate you. So what is a non-starter for you? Is there one thing that frustrates you most about business, life, people? What is that thing?
Wow, that is a big question. I think I don't know that there's one big thing that stands out. I think that as long as people are communicating, right, and they're talking, then things will go in the right direction. It's when people aren't collaborating or communicating that you typically have an issue. And it's interesting. In an environment like we're in, where we have different cultures, you have people in different roles. You'll get situations where somebody will send a message to you and it says something. But I've learned over the years, don't assume that that's exactly what they mean. So make sure you ask questions, right? Ask questions to clarify and say, is this really what you're referring to, or do you mean something else? So that's one. From a business perspective, I think one of the things that I do now is I only schedule 30-minute meetings, right? Because I think people should come to a meeting prepared, right? If you can't get the message across in 30 minutes, in most cases, then you got an issue. So make sure you prepare, communicate effectively, and then make sure you follow up. That's the other thing is there's always a follow-up regardless of what it is. Could be a customer scenario, it could be working on a project, or you're trying to get something accomplished. It's all about communication and follow-up. So I found that the 30 minutes works pretty well because people will come prepared. They'll articulate what they need. We have a discussion, and then hopefully we make a decision and we talk about next steps. And I think people really appreciate that. So, that type of thing for me, if people aren't prepared and we run into a situation where the whole thing goes sideways, that can be a little bit frustrating. But again, that typically only happens once, and then, it's corrected going forward.
And super tactically, are you a big fan of a pre-read as an executive when someone wants some time? Or do you literally in that 30 minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes is explaining the situation and 20 minutes is solving it? Like, how do you think about that?
In general, I think it's better to have people come prepared and be able to articulate, because again, from a sales perspective, if you're coming into a meeting, and let's just say it's no different in a customer meeting, you got to be able to show up, make your point, get it across, and then have a conclusion. Now, there are Now, there are exceptions. If you're going through a big project, right, and you've got to get acclimated, I mean, yes, then a pre-read is good. But in general, I found that if you set the expectation, people typically come prepared and they'll be able to articulate what they need. So, that actually helps me maximize my time as well.
Now, before we let you go, if you're open to it, I would love to do a quick fire round with you. You down for this?
Okay. Sure, I'm up for anything, Dan. You know that.
All right, fantastic. So I might let you get away with your immediate answer. If you say something, I might press a little bit more, but let's see how this goes. All right, first question. Who is your hero?
Oh gosh, I don't really have one. There are different people that, I look to who I think, are followers or people that I want to follow because of what they do. I don't really have one in particular. So that one I can't give you a straight answer on.
That's okay. That's okay. This one, maybe you can. The best sales kickoff that you've ever been to?
That would probably be the first SAP sales kickoff that I attended. In all the different companies that I've worked for, it was an event, and it was probably the most inspiring event, to get you charged up and excited. I mean, SAP knows how to do that probably better than any other company I've worked for.
Amazing. Now, with a global role, morning lark or night owl?
My nickname used to be 24/7, okay, because I would typically have Europe in the morning and I'd have Asia Pacific at night. I am a morning person, in general. My wife is the opposite, right? She's a night person and I'm a morning person.
Ditto. This is random. Last Halloween costume?
I don't usually dress up for Halloween, but I will say this. They got me into a fantasy football league for the first time this year, and I made side bets, with my daughters and the family. I lost a side bet, and my youngest decided that for me, since I lost, I had to wear a turkey suit at Thanksgiving, which I did this year. So that would qualify as my last, costume.
Do photographs exist of this moment or no?
There will be no photos of that at all.
There you go. Moving on. What's your favorite city in the world?
That's hard. There's so many great cities in Europe and in Asia that I've been to. We were just in Paris. Paris is a great town. I mean, that's really tough. I mean, Italy has many good cities, and then I've been through China. I'll stick with Paris.
Any city or country that you haven't visited that you'd really, really like to?
I didn't get a chance to go to Russia. There were several times where I had the opportunity to go, but I didn't have enough time to get a visa because it was a last-minute customer situation. So Russia was one area that I didn't get a chance to go to that I'd love to go to.
So, Mr. 24/7, how many cups of coffee a day?
I stopped drinking coffee years ago because I used to drink, 16-ounce cups that were bigger than this, and I would average 9 or 10 a day. I've switched over to green tea, which, I only have 1 or 2 and I'm good to go.
There you go. Favorite manager that you've ever had and why?
That's another hard one. I would say probably the one guy that sticks out is Ray Lane at Oracle. When I was at Oracle, I had the opportunity to work with Ray. He still is one of the most well-rounded business people. He has a fantastic perspective and knowledge of business as well as technology. And, he was able on very short notice to get CEOs to say, yeah, I'll take a meeting with you. And just the way he operated, the breadth of knowledge. I mean, he just was a really, really great guy to work for.
Amazing. Last question for you, I promise. What would you tell your younger self?
Interesting. How young would that be? I'm not going to answer that.
Not going there.
I think I would come back to my dad was a CEO for his entire career, and I used to go to my dad for advice. And he would give me advice when I asked. But I think I would go back to the advice I gave my kids. Find something that you really enjoy and really gets you jazzed every day when you get out of bed, and do it to the best of your ability. Because if you do that, you're going to be happy in your work, but you're also going to be happy in your life.
Beautiful. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for sharing everything you've done today.
Great. Dan, happy to be here. Thanks for asking.